Hello collectors, today we're going to be doing a dual review slash comparison of two figures. Those two figures being the SH Monsterarts Kong on the left, the original release, and the event exclusive Kong on the right. Now, what we're going to be aiming to do in this review is take a look at both figures, see what their strong points are, how they differ, and deciding whether they are worth picking up together, or if just choosing one is all you have to do, and which one specifically should you buy if you're just going to be purchasing one. So let's jump right into it. Before we look at the figures themselves, let's take a look at the packaging that they come in. First being the standard release of Kong, the original release. This is the box, your usual Monsterarts box, unique in the fact that the color scheme definitely reflects the movie with the orange and blue. You can see, if we turn it back on the front, we have the figure displayed nicely right here, as well as all the logos at the bottom, the title Godzilla vs. Kong, the figure Kong from Godzilla vs. Kong 2021. We turn it around and we see some promo images of Kong with the axe, as well as some other things, the poses you can get him in, these swappable heads. There's a window on the back, which is very interesting, something I think they should continue to do. Very nice for the box on the standard release. For the event exclusive version, a much more unique and interesting box. You can see that Kong just has an orange color scheme going on with him, as well as Mechagodzilla having gray, a very different color scheme from the prior box. We can see too the background is just completely black, but essentially the same thing. We have the title as well as Kong from Godzilla vs. Kong 2021 exclusive edition. This one's a little harder to fit onto my set here, but we can see we have Kong on the side, and just like before, we have the promo shots of the figure. Very beautiful. And then we'll move on to the figures themselves. So before we actually look at the figures themselves, the first thing we'll take a look at are the accessories. Now, the original release of Kong comes with two separate head sculpts. We'll look at them right now. We have this kind of battle-ready screaming head, which looks really nice, and then we'll bring in closely Kong, which is a more neutral face. Maybe he's just kind of onlooking. He sees Godzilla off in the distance, or he's waiting for something. Just a more stoic face. Very nice. Obviously, the biggest draw in terms of accessories is the battle axe with one of the Godzilla's dorsal plates, dorsal fins. Super cool. Very nice. You can see the bone it's attached to. Like that. We'll place that down. He comes with, let's see, 4 sets of hands. We have fisted hands, which is what I have him on, what I have on him right now. We have a set of knuckle hands. This is for if you want Kong to be in all 4s, which we'll take a look at later. This is a pair of open hands, perhaps for more neutral poses, or maybe he could be waving or high-fiving other monsters, I don't know. And then, of course, we have gripping hands for the axe, which again we'll look at a little bit later. So in terms of accessories, Kong comes with, I'd say, a standard amount of accessories. This is a very good amount, I'd say, for a standard release of Monsterarts, because as most of you know, if you collect Monsterarts, you really only ever get maybe an extra set of hands, or in rare, or not rare, in common cases, you get nothing. So it's nice to see that a standard release, especially one that can be as expressive as Kong, gets so much accessories. Now here is the event exclusive Kong with his accessories, and as you can see, he comes with a lot more than the initial release. Instead of the 2 different head sculpts, he comes with 3 different head sculpts. This one specifically is the more exclusive one, with a more grimacing kind of grin, or not grin I'd say, but grimace going on. Now this alternate head does appear to be very similar, if not the exact same as the one on the prior Kong, with obviously the minor differences in the paint. And that too would also be the case for the screaming head right here. Additionally, he also comes with Mechagodzilla's severed head. I'm happy to say that this version of the axe is not the same, doesn't have the same paint as the prior axe, but instead has the powered up glowing effect going on. Very, very cool to have that. In addition to that, there is a piece that we can separate. I don't want to do it too much, but you can actually place the axe inside of this little setup to make it look like the axe is basically charging, or he's swinging the axe about to hit Godzilla with it. We'll take a look at that more later. He comes also with the heaves, which are a very cool inclusion if it'll focus up on them. All three of them, I believe they're unpainted, just printed in it's kind of like a green color going on here. Alright, so I'm inserting this in the middle of the video, but I actually just finished the review. But the heaves, you can see how small they are. They're actually articulated. As you can see, you can move around. Little propulsion elements of them. Very, very cool. Kong comes with, let's see, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of hands, and then an extra right hand, it would appear. So right now, again, just like the other figure, I have him with his fisted hands on. Kong comes with a ton of different gripping hands, I assume primarily for the axe, to get him into more interesting poses with the axe. This hand here, I believe, is the hand you use to hold Mechagodzilla's head. A more open-palmed hand, and another open-palmed hand for the right hand, and what looks to be, again, maybe some other type of grip, but also could possibly be like a pointer. Not exactly sure. And of course, another gripping hand. So moving on to articulation. These figures are pretty much the same exact figure, minus maybe a few like inconsistencies perhaps. But we'll take a look at the event exclusive Kong for the articulation, okay? So he can look left and right, sort of. You can't really twist his head or swivel his head right or left very far. In fact, kind of bends at the neck. You can see there. But I believe his upper body kind of makes it a little difficult to do, which is fine. You can even get him to look left and right just by kind of spinning his head like so. The double joint in the neck allows him to look really far up. And while he can look somewhat down, it doesn't look as good as him looking up. You'll have to combine that with him bending forward with his chest articulation, in which case it does look pretty good, like he's looking down at some humans perhaps. Coming down to the shoulders, you can get a pretty wide range of motion in the shoulders. You can see how far he can move his arm back, forward. You can even lift the elbow, drop it for more dynamic posing if you'd like. I prefer to keep them up so this kind of lays flush against the shoulder. It looks a little more natural. It kind of looks like there's a slight cut at the bicep, although it doesn't really articulate too well. It's a bit hindered by the sculpt. He has double jointed elbows, always great to see. And of course, since the wrist or the hands can pop out, he has a ball joint on the wrist as well. You can see from the front and his back, he has these 2 points of articulation, one in kind of the upper chest area, and then around the torso and rib cage area, which allows him to get into very, very intense poses, and what allows him to get into all fours, which we will look at in a little bit. down at the waist, it can slightly swivel, but not a whole lot, but you can definitely get the waist into natural poses combined with the articulation of the upper body. You can really get Kong into some pretty dynamic posing if you so wish. And then his legs are very well articulated. You can see the joint connected to the upper leg into the pelvis area, just like the shoulders. The thigh joint, or the joint on the leg, whatever you want to call it, can kind of rise and fall, which is very good. It can twist around. You can hear mine's a little squeaky, which is fine. He has double jointed knees, just like his elbows, although I'd say his knees bend a lot easier and a lot better than the elbows do. And around the feet, he has articulation up above his ankle, and then right around the ankle as well. Quite a lot of articulation in the feet area, which is very good. And then of course he has a little bend halfway through his foot, so you can definitely get him into cool poses. To wrap up the articulation portion, I brought back in the standard release of Kong because he has the knuckle hands, so I'm going to show you how to put Kong into the all fours pose. Now I found that it's kind of difficult to do it at first, so I've had this figure for quite a while and I finally kind of figured out how to get it just right. So what you do is you drop the neck as far as you can and have the head look up as far as you can. You want to bend Kong's back pretty much as far as it can go without risking popping out, of course. And you want his arms as far down as possible. And trust me, the body joints are going to want to fight you on this. So make sure you're constantly readjusting the back if you need to. And then the legs, all you have to do is spread them out, turn them, close them inward, take the feet, bend the knees if you need to. Like I said, it's a bit of a process, but with enough finagling. So there we have Kong on all fours. Now again, it's going to take some time to get used to, and your best of luck, or your best chances of achieving this, is honestly spreading Kong's legs as far out as they can, just so his backside can drop as far as possible, because you want his front half to be raised as much as possible for the convincing look. And I'd say once you have it done, it looks really, really good. Now, the event exclusive Kong is obviously capable of getting into this pose. However, he doesn't come with the knuckle hands, so obviously if you have both of them, you can swap out the hands for the event exclusive Kong if you want him to get into this pose, or you can very easily use the fisted hands if you don't mind him running on I guess his fists rather than his knuckles. So now for the paint detail, we'll start with the standard release of Kong, starting up on top with the head. Very nicely done. We'll also be talking about sculpt, of course. I think the sculpt is very, very nice. I've heard some people complain about the sculpt and the paint a lot. I'd say this is very convincingly enough of Kong for me. I can definitely agree that maybe he's not super screen accurate in terms of color and paint. I think me and others share the sentiment that his skin area seems a little too dark, maybe something a little more of a brighter tone of gray than the really, really dark gray that we got, as well as the reflective paint on this release of the figure might have been better without the reflectiveness. However, I don't see too big of an issue with it. But again, we'll look up at the head. So sculpt wise, very, very nice. Fur looks great. And the paint in it too is very nice. You can see the more deeper, darker colors deep within the fur, and then the brighter, kind of bright browns on top of the fur, which I think look very nice. We can see Kong's eyes are painted super nicely, very brown and bright. You can see the light even reflects inside them. You can see he has the claw marks. Very, very nice indeed. And again, just the browns are what kind of really sells it for me. Very good coloration there. This is the detail on his back. Again, that same kind of fur detail travels throughout the entire figure, which is very, very nice. Just like his face, his knuckles are kind of like a dark grayish black. And that goes for all the hands that he has, as well as the feet. So here is the event exclusive Kong, which, if I have not already made clear, is specifically based off during and after the final fight of the movie. So this Kong has a lot more battle damage incorporated into his paint and sculpt, which we'll be taking a closer look at. So we'll take a look at his head just like before, eyes painted very nicely. You can see the brown in his eyes, the reflectiveness, very, very good. A lot of people were saying that the shininess was fixed on this figure. I say he still looks pretty shiny. I can see that the chest and the face are not as a deep black as the other figure, perhaps. So if that's an improvement for you, then points up for this one, right? We can see that his teeth are very nicely painted. If we get nice and close in there, might have to zoom in, perhaps. Yes, very, very good. You can see there's like little splotches of brown paint. Now this could potentially be blood. Otherwise it kind of looks like little dirt splotches, but you can see that he does have cuts all around his body representing blood. So this one is definitely battle damaged. You can see the brown is a lot more faded on this figure. It looks a lot more gray. I think in terms of the coloration, I definitely prefer the initial release, as Kong, in my recollection, is the colors on Kong's fur are very, very brown, right? But you can definitely see that kind of blood splatter all around the different fur and areas of the skin. Looks very, very good. Or skin, fur, you know what I mean. Looks very nice. And then kind of the same deal with the feet and the hands. Has that same grayish black. Looks very, very nice. So just to do a side by side, you can see what I mean when I say that the initial release has a lot more of a brighter brown color, while the battle damage version has a more, honestly, kind of like a dusty color, which is probably what they were going for, as Kong was in a lot of debris by the end of the movie. But you can see the scarring is different. This is where Godzilla sliced him up toward the end of the film. You can even see differences in the face with the blood splatters. Very, very good. I'd say maybe the blood splatters aren't as prominent as I had hoped. Sometimes they're really hard to see. Like, you might have noticed that I didn't really see some on the face until I took a really close zoomed in shot. But otherwise, both are painted extremely well, although I think I honestly prefer the original release over the newer release, just because of the intense browns in the paint. Also, while we're at talking about sculpt and detail, we'll take a closer look at some of the accessories, like the heaves, which actually are super detailed, look super nice. If I ever get the courage to, maybe I can repaint these to look a little more screen accurate, but these definitely do the job and look really good. Here is the standard battle axe compared to the exclusive battle axe. You can see that they're essentially the same exact sculpt, minus differences in paint, but both very, very nice. So this is the battle axe with the effect part on it. It's a little hard to put on. You actually unclamp the piece. There's two pieces, and they each attach to the sides of the axe, but it's a little difficult to do, and I'm not even sure if this is exactly how it's supposed to look, but it still looks pretty cool. Here's the event exclusive Kong holding the Mecha Godzilla head, which looks super awesome. I'm definitely going to be between having him displayed with this and, of course, the axe. So now here's a shot of both Kongs and their battle axes. So before we discuss final verdicts or anything, or giving the comparison, I wanted to do a little size comparison to a few other figures that I have off to the side. Firstly, I have this little octopus guy that I got at Michael's, not really Kong or Godzilla branded, but he really works in scale as a giant octopus for Kong. So we're going to be placing him right there. In addition to him, we have Raymundo, or YMSF Kong, and you can see that he scales nearly perfectly with these two. These guys are in the 6-inch scale, although since they are Kong specifically, they are a little shorter than that. I'd say they're around like 5 to 5.5 inches tall, but you can see he looks really nice next to Kong. And then, of course, the big G himself, Godzilla. Specifically, this is the 2019 release of Godzilla. However, they are very similar figures, so of course he's going to work well as a stand-in for Godzilla vs. Kong. And you can see he scales very nicely with him. Okay, so before we get to the final verdict, the last few things I want to say about these figures. Now, if you do end up purchasing both of them, yes, their parts will perfectly swap out with one another. However, with the differing paint applications, the left being a little more brown and the right being a little more gray, if you look very closely, you will notice the inconsistencies throughout the figure once you swap those parts around. In addition to that, the heads, I should say, on the Kong, on the event exclusive, have the blood marks. Now, obviously you wouldn't use 2 of those 3 heads, but if you wanted your prior Kong, your initial release Kong to have this head sculpt, then yeah, you're going to notice some paint inaccuracies or inconsistencies once you swap those heads. The powered up special effect for the event exclusive Kong can definitely be used on the other Kong convincingly enough without any questioning, and I honestly think that the heaves should honestly be paired with the initial release of Kong, as it depicts him more around that part of the film when the 3 heaves were with him. So if you do have both of them, that would be nice. But now moving on to the final verdict. Should you own both of these? Should you own one of these? The answer to that, I think, will depend on, one, how much money you're willing to spend on these guys, and if you're a big enough collector to get both of them. So, in my honest opinion, I do not believe you need to get both these figures. But if you are a super fan and you want to have different versions of Kong from the same movie, then by all means, yes, go out of your way to get these 2. As far as pricing goes for the Kong, the initial release of Kong, on the left, I believe I spent around $60 to $68, maybe $70 when he initially came out. Not that much at all, especially compared to how much the Godzillas cost nowadays, right? For the event exclusive Kong, which you can actually get on Big Bad Toy Store and probably secondhand market as well. But for retail, you're going to be spending anywhere from $95 to $100, maybe even higher on online stores. But obviously the more expensive figure comes with way more accessories, and definitely the cooler must-have accessories such as the Mechagodzilla head and the heaves. And speaking of the Mechagodzilla head, we'll leave him right there. Why not? Now, when it does come to choosing which Kong you should prioritize, I think will come down to 2 factors, that being preference and budget. If you're not really looking for a more expensive figure, you just want a Kong, maybe you just like this movie, or you just like King Kong, you want to get a Kong figure, and maybe you have the other Godzilla, and you just want to have Kong and Godzilla and nothing else, then I think going the route of the original release is fine if you can find him for a good price, or again around retail price, which is $60 to $68, $70. However, if you are a more hardcore collector, but you're still wanting to just choose one figure, I definitely would highly recommend going the extra mile to pick up the event exclusive. Again, you don't need to pick him up at Comic-Con. He's on Big Bad Toy Stores, secondhand stores, but you'll definitely get him cheapest in person. Again, I paid, I believe, $97 for the one on the right, so that still is a steep asking price for honestly a smaller figure. So again, it's all up to budget and preference, but if I were to recommend just one figure, by all means I would get the event exclusive. He just comes with so much cooler stuff. The Mecha Godzilla head, I mean, he comes with the axe. And then with that being said, is there any benefit to owning the one on the left, the original release? Yes, a lot of the hands that both figures come with are completely different, which is very nice. You can only have the knuckle hands on the original release Kong, or you can only get them with the original release Kong. And the Kong on the right, the event exclusive, comes with way more hands and more unique sculpted hands. So definitely they are both valuable in their own right. The one on the right, the event exclusive, definitely does not like devalue the one on the left by any means, at least in terms of like enjoyment of having both of them. And again, that being said, if you are a true collector, as I said at the start of this segment, you'll probably want to just get both of them. But both figures I highly, highly, highly recommend. Both figures I'd probably rank around the same, either an 8 or 9. Very, very good. Again, highly recommend. I'm not sure exactly where you'll find these. The event exclusive Kong, obviously you'll find at New York and San Diego Comic-Con for a few years, until they stop manufacturing those, as well as Big Bad Toy Store. And the original release of Kong on the left, you can probably find on a ton of online stores until he is done being manufactured. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was informative and helpful and entertaining. So please follow for more videos like this in the future. Thank you. Goodbye.